Nicosia International Airport. Once a busy hub for holidaymakers, but now a ghost airport, frozen in time for 50 years. That's because it's part of the 180-kilometre buffer zone, which still divides Cyprus to this day. Turkish Cypriots in the north and Greek Cypriots in the south. Forces News has been given a rare glimpse inside a key battleground of the 1974 conflict.
We're now on top of the former Nicosia International Airport, which in July and through into August of 1974 was vital ground for both sides. When the Turkish forces began their intervention stroke invasion, they had three main objectives. The first one is if we're looking over to the west, we're now looking northwest, so beyond us is what is now the TRNC, the so-called Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus. The first objective is to land over there on the western side of Cyprus at Kyrenia with an amphibious force. Then they want to cross over the Kyrenia mountains and swing round to the north of Nicosia, linking up with Turkish Cypriot enclaves up there. The third objective is to capture this airport. To do that, I'll just pivot around this way. To do that, they were landing airborne forces over there. Paratroopers jumping out of C-47 Dakotas plus C-130 Hercules. The Turkish forces also had Huey helicopters. So they landed around about 1,000 airborne forces over there, and the fighting happened beyond the camp in the area of the trees you can see over there. All the time you've got the National Guard up here and on the roof of the air traffic control building. And this fighting continued. There were attempts at negotiation. An officer within the Greek Cypriot National Guard said the fighting for this place will be desperate. Both sides want it so badly this will turn into a Stalingrad or a Mosul. So they then put it through first negotiating a ceasefire, which had to hold here, because if the ceasefire didn't hold here, you would lose the runway, which the UN definitely needed post-conflict to bring in reinforcements and aid refugees, bring in supplies. The UN wanted it, and then you have to make sure that both sides stop, because this will, if the ceasefire breaks here, then the fragile ceasefire elsewhere on the island will also fail, and we get more bloodshed. So thanks to some very brave officers, including a Colonel Beatty from the Canadian Armed Forces, who stood on top of a bus and waved a UN flag, and because he wasn't shot at, proved to both sides, who had both said we're prepared to have a ceasefire if the other one stops firing first. He proved it was safe to go out there under a UN flag, and then we get a ceasefire, and that then held, and the airport terminal became UN property and has remained in the UN protected area for the last 50 years. Here you'd have all the bustle going on, excited children, concerned parents, frustrated parents maybe, but you've also got the cafeteria up behind me. Here you've got duty free and a gift shop, and again this does date it. 3 telephone booths, which is all you need. You didn't need to be connected to the internet in those days. The chairs are so modern. Unfortunately, they've had pigeons sitting on them for 50 years. You think back to maybe how things were in the 50s, they're probably still sitting on wooden chairs or wicker chairs. You think back to stuff from, say, the 1920s and 30s. And you have to imagine that people were sat here thinking, I'm going to go on the best holiday of my life, or I've just had the best holiday of my life. Then in 1974, it was people coming through here desperate to get away. And then that was the last time this airport was used, were when people were desperate to get away, as opposed to reflecting on a wonderful holiday. We're now coming out from arrivals. We're coming down to, you would walk through here, down the steps you can see ahead of us, and you'd go and reclaim your baggage. It's so interesting to come here and see what they were hoping to do. You've got all the adverts you can see of the time, the wonderful holidays that people were planning. Nicosia at the time wanted to be, Nicosia and Cyprus I should say, wanted to be the tourist hub for the Eastern Mediterranean. Unfortunately for Nicosia and Cyprus, we have the intervention invasion, and then this building being frozen in time, and we can come here and stand and just ponder what might have been. The dreams and realities were faced with amazing change, unfortunate change, and it's now left as a monument to what might have been. The fact that the glass is still very much in either end of the building is testament to what the UN was able to achieve. There are only 2 bullet holes. If the fighting had come through here, this would have been absolutely demolished. There would be no glass at all in the building. So again, it's worth, people don't notice it when we first bring them round, but when we say, why is there still glass here? Well, it's because the UN was able to negotiate the ceasefire and keep the fighting away from the terminal. The aircraft behind me is the Hawker Siddeley Trident. The Hawker Siddeley Trident was the pride of the Cyprus Airways fleet. When the invasion intervention happened, the 4 that were here, 2 of them were used to block the runway, one at the far end and one where the runways cross. Unfortunately, one of them was destroyed by the Turkish Air Force during the actions of July 74, leaving the 3 aircraft, and this aircraft here was cannibalised. You can see there is a lot of shrapnel and fragmentation damage in there, in the tail, as well as the Rolls-Royce engines, but that there is a significant piece of history. How you could make the airport work again is a very complicated question that unfortunately I do not have the answer for. A similar thing happened in the opening phases of the war in Ukraine, where Russian air mobile forces tried to capture, I believe it was Kiev airport. It's a tactic, it's a strategy that is still relevant today, and we've brought serving soldiers here, and they look at it, and you can see the cogs whirring in their head, saying, "Wow, this could be something we could have to do." And they are very, very keen to learn. They are definitely switched on at that moment when we tell them about what happened here.
Thanks for watching. For more from Forces News, like and subscribe to our channel.